Special Town Hall meeting. Call to order, please.
Commissioners Brown, Fuller,
Present.
Harris,
Present.
Herr,
Present.
Mercy,
Present.
Vice Chair Rodriguez, Chairman Little.
Present.
We have a quorum.
Would you please all stand for the flag salute? Commissioner Fuller.
Go face the flag. Repeat with me. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Welcome, everyone. We'll have a presentation here directly, but I just wanted to let everyone know that in this meeting tonight, we will conduct it as orderly as possible. It's creating the commission intends to conduct these meeting with respect to the proper quorum on the government code 54957.9. These meetings will be intended to be not an entertainment venue, so we will hope that everyone will behave themselves and no applauding and everything. We got a lot to get through here. Speaker cards. Remind everyone, if you need a speaker card, please fill out the speaker card at the back and give it forward to Allison Burns here, please. With that, we'll go to Mr. Cottle.
Thank you, Chairman Little, Commissioners. This is our second time presenting before you. As you recall, we presented at the regular CJC meeting, and at that meeting you recommended that you conduct a town hall meeting to get more input and more engagement, and based on that recommendation, I can sense that your decision was wise, is that we have good attendance, and we appreciate that. This is a very important project that we're working on, and public input is very, very important to not only us, the City Council, but also for you, the Commission itself. Before you today is kind of an innovative and exciting project that we've been working on for a while. It is our Smart Streetlight project, and I know a lot of the conversation is going to be centered around the cameras tonight as you're approving a camera use policy, but you'll also be hearing other things that the camera can do or the system can do, from Wi-Fi technology, communications technology, to also efficiencies in the lighting system as well. This stems from our STIR project, which is Strategic Technology, Innovation, and Resilience, in which the city continues to look for ways to be more technologically advanced, more innovative in our approaches, and resilient from a financial perspective so that we can create a city that's more vibrant, safe, and obviously financially viable. The system is what we're going to be talking about today is a system of nodes that go on top of each streetlight, and we have Rob Prasky with Anycom, who's going to talk for the details about the head itself and what it does and what it can do. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Rob to talk a little bit about the head. I will come back and then talk a little more about what the benefit is to the city and how the city benefits from this system. And then Allison Burns is going to talk a little bit about the policy and the legalities of the operation of this system. So with that, I'll turn it over to Rob, CEO of Anycom.
Well, thanks for inviting me back after just a few short weeks. I brought one of our sample nodes here today, and so I just wanted to demonstrate where this device goes and how it actually attaches to the streetlight. So basically what we have is a device that replaces the photocell on the top of every streetlight. So on the streetlight already, as you go and drive around the city, you'll see these black bumps that are sitting up top. And basically that's a photocell socket that can turn the light on and off. So in the evening, it senses darkness and it closes a relay contact, turns the light on, and the reverse process in the morning. So this technology has been around for about 75 years, and that's the process that controls the light today. So it's a nice uniform thing if you're trying to build a new Wi-Fi network throughout a city. you have to think about how to place these Wi-Fi routers at an equal, even distance all around the city. And believe it or not, the best place is right on top of the streetlight. So effectively what we do is we take out the old photocell and we replace it with this device, which is a photocell. And so it turns the light on and off. It's a really smart photocell also, because it's also a smart meter inside. So it meters how much power the streetlight's using, and if there's any problems with lights going out or anything like that, it can communicate with the city and let the city know, oh, there's a street light out, or something has a problem. So our whole concept of coming to cities is to create a new Wi-Fi high-speed network. And so we are deploying Wi-Fi 6 inside this box. And that's the fastest speed that Wi-Fi can go today. And so it's up to 10 gigabits per second, which is really, really fast. And so the opportunity is to deploy it all across the city and have this new wireless network. No matter where you go, you can get on at super high speed. So with that opportunity, and when you bolt it in the city, you can also place other sensors inside this box that can do lots of different things. So I'll just give you a few examples. We've got an accelerometer inside here and a magnetometer. That's important because if you deploy enough of these, thousands, you can actually create an advanced earthquake detection system where you can feel how the earth is moving, and you can get a head start by, maybe up to 30 seconds to turn critical devices off, in a catastrophe. So that's a possibility on this box. It also has the capability to turn multicolored lights on all four sides of this box. It's an emergency notification system. So let's say you have a street that you need to close real quickly. We can flash LED red lights on this box, which gives drivers a notification, hey, there's a problem here. Maybe you shouldn't go that way. So it's a helpful early warning detection system. So we also have, as has been reported in the media here, there are image sensors in this box that you can turn on if you create the policy in the city to use. Today, you already have many image sensors that are deployed at the streets. They're mainly at intersections, so when you bring your car to an intersection, you'll see multiple cameras pointing down right at the beginning of the intersection. That just lets you know a car is there. And so you can adjust the streetlights based on whether or not there are cars there. So this system has the capability of doing that down the street. So we can detect traffic and count cars and that kind of thing. So lots of capabilities inside the box. It's pretty slick. On the front three sides, those image sensors basically point down the street. On the back, there isn't one. So that is just the LED notification devices. And so that's a real broad overview of the device. Yep. Sure.
And we'll be available for questions after. We'll just get through the presentation first. Thank you for that. Though, in mentioning the technologies in that camera or in that system, there's obviously a number of different benefits the city receives. He already covered that one. The benefits are numerous. One is that our current streetlight system is a dumb system, right? What we're creating is a smart system. So if we have a streetlight that's knocked down, we don't know about it until somebody picks up the phone and calls us. In some cases, in rural areas, the light can be knocked down and nobody calls. It's not blocking traffic, and they don't feel the need to call. So sometimes we'll have lights down for a significant amount of time. When this system, if a light is knocked down, we know about it. If a light is not functioning correctly, if it's not lit or it's out, it'll notify us that it's out. It'll also tell us, how efficient our lights are being and how we can have the ability to turn them on, turn them off, dim them, flash them during a 911 signal that allows us to identify for responding personnel that's responding that flashing light is blinking to let them know where the house is located. There's a number of different technologies that can happen with the efficiency and the utilization of these lights. That is beyond what normal cities have the opportunity to handle. A private Wi-Fi network. As Rob mentioned, this provides us not only access from a city perspective to access Wi-Fi, but as we look at technology increasing throughout the years, and we look at autonomous vehicles, those autonomous vehicles can be communicating with the telecommunications system wirelessly. We're one step ahead with this system. We have the opportunity to provide free Wi-Fi to schools and neighborhoods where kids may have limited access to Wi-Fi. These are all the things that can come along with that. And on top of that, the cellular system within that network, a lot of our cellular coverage is going to be going through Wi-Fi. It increases our cellular network as well, because some of your calls are going to originate through this system as well, through the non-traditional way of the small cell technology. Faster emergency response we talked about. In this, the cameras, they have the opportunity to provide metrics as it relates to traffic, pedestrian counts, things of that nature that are video analytics that we can place on intersections. So when we do traffic counts, when we do traffic analysis, we have the ability to put on sensors on these cameras that allow us to count traffic as it relates to what's happening on there. We can look at it from a cleaner streets perspective. We can survey areas that are prone to illegal dumping, that we can go on the camera site, look at there, see if there's illegal dumping, and then be efficient with our response. On top of this, and I think we've talked a little bit about it, is the camera itself. And I think with that camera itself, it provides us a significant amount of public safety opportunities as well. The way these cameras operate, they're basically collecting video signal in the box itself. So that box that Rob showed has a hard drive in there that just generally is always collecting images. And they'll hold them for 28 days and drop the latest day. So there's only 28 days in the head of that camera. So the city staff or personnel is not going to be looking at 80,000 cameras. The way we anticipate utilizing this is to, when we identify a crime, when we identify a triggering moment, we have the ability to go access this data to see what opportunities exist. So if we have a burglary and somebody walked out the front door with a TV, we have the opportunity to go back to that camera and identify when it happened, who did it, and where they drove. We can track them through the series of camera systems and a number of different things from a law enforcement perspective. It has listening technology that allows us to identify a gunshot. So when there's a gunshot in the community, we will be able to triangulate where that gunshot came from. And when you talk to Rob about the technology, that technology can actually identify the type of gun, caliber of gun, et cetera. But the key with that is that you identify the location of that gunshot. Oftentimes we'll hear, hey, gunshots reported. Doesn't do us any good if somebody calls a gunshots reported, because we don't know where to respond. Our deputies don't know where to respond. In this setting, that listening system would trigger a moment and identify that gunshot came from this location. So we have the opportunity to respond, and our deputies have the opportunity to respond through that. If we hear car crashes, we have the ability to hear the sense of car crash so that it's automatically dispatched as a triggering event and lets us know from a dispatch perspective. So there's a lot of public safety tools that are inside this box as well. And the goal is two things. One is the certainty of apprehension, that those people committing the crime have a certainty of being apprehended, and that we have identifiable information that we can go find the suspect. So either recover materials or find the bad actor and doing it. And hopefully, at the end of the day, deterring people from committing crime by identifying who's doing it, when, and where. And I think those are the two key issues that relates to this system. Obviously, when we deploy 80,000 cameras and we start looking at public space on a regular basis, this necessitates a policy as it relates to how do we utilize these facilities, how do we access them, what's appropriate, what isn't appropriate, and of course our governing bodies need to determine that from a policy perspective. We've put together a policy. Allison has put together a use policy that is for your approval, which will then be once recommended, edited, modified today, if possible, goes to the council for their ratification. And as we continue to work on the contractual issues with AnyCom, we hope to deploy these with council approval and of this policy as well as the system and the contract. We deploy these hopefully sometime in the 2020 timeframe, or in this calendar year, or this budget year. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Allison to talk about the policy itself.
Good evening, Commissioners. Tonight we're here to discuss and obtain your input and the input of the community to the camera surveillance policy, make revisions, and then take it on to the City Council. As mentioned, the plan is to deploy these cameras to monitor from locations within the public sphere, where out in the public area where people do not have that expectation of privacy. The city will have approval rights over the camera locations, but it will generally be on streetlights throughout the community. The present policy is to record video only and not sound. That is the current iteration of the policy. We are here to take input on that and every other aspect of it. The expectation and policy as written right now is that it will be monitoring 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, and the video will be retained for 28 days. As to the recordation, we'll be gathering pedestrian and traffic counts only as a routine matter based on the policy as presented, and the videos, images will be held by the vendor and subject to city request for use where the images may evidence criminal activity. Once they're transferred to the city, then the city will own and retain in accordance with the city's public records and retention policies. As set forth in the policy and in California law, unauthorized access of the cameras, the recordings, or distribution of any recorded content by the vendor would subject them to immediate action, including but not limited to civil and criminal penalties. So, and that's part of our contracting with the vendor as well. I'm happy to answer any questions you may have, but that's the 10,000-foot view at the policy that is before you tonight.
Thank you, Allison.
Yes.
Yeah, I had a question actually on that last point about the unauthorized distribution. So they are not or would not be permitted to sell any of the information gathered to private vendor, data mining companies, that kind of thing.
Correct.
Okay.
This policy, we can detect collisions, broken glass, and things like that.
Right. It's not set up right now. It's not set up that we'd be recording those, but we can detect them.
We can detect them.
Yes.
Okay.
Presently, as the policy is written, we're not recording that audio.
We're not recording that audio.
Correct. But we can detect it and have that triggering alert come to our public safety officials so that we can deploy the appropriate resources.
Right. This was probably to Rob. I apologize. Is that I believe that you said the cameras are on 3 sides?
That's right.
Originally, I thought it was proposed that it was on 4 sides.
I think that was how I originally understood it as well.
So I was a little surprised when you said it's 3 sides instead of the fourth, and the fourth back end of it, I'm assuming, would be photocell only.
Yeah.
I mean, for the turning on and off.
That's correct. This is the latest generation of this device. So the previous generation had 4 cameras.
4 cameras. Okay.
And why did they remove the 4th camera on the upgraded version?
So this device doesn't have any backwards looking capability because a pole is in the way. So there was limited value. So when you're up, when you're up on the street light, you see a pole in this camera, and so there was limited value from that point of view.
Okay, another question I would like to ask is the 28-day period. Can that ever be altered at all? In other words, if there was a need to extend beyond the 28 period, is that a capability?
Yeah. So currently, there is memory inside this generation of this device, and that's the maximum capability that is stored in this device today. So that doesn't mean in the future that we'll have a larger hard drive.
I was under the assumption that that's a possibility of extending that period of time.
It's possible.
So my understanding is it's possible, but it wouldn't be in that device. It would be saved on a separate server.
Right.
based on the current hardware availability and capability.
So it would be outsourced to a different server?
It would be on a different server.
Different
Yes.
server.
So does that camera has motion detect options? So which means that there's a motion, it will record. There's no motions, it's not going to record. So
Yeah, so typically out on the street there is always some kind of motion.
That is true.
So typically it's just in a loop here, and it's like a trash bin on your computer, so it just gets thrown out constantly. So it goes and it fills up for 28 days, and then it just throws the oldest one out. So it's very difficult to individually pick out areas of motion down on the street, whether it's leaves or branches or cars. Difficult.
so it records always.
That's right.
Now, you mentioned the fact that it has the capability of having lights come on when there is a situation, hypothetically an accident or something like that. Does that, when the lights come on, does that automatically notify law enforcement agency or ambulance or anything like that, or it has to be triggered?
Typically, you would set up triggering events. So some event happens, and you flash that light, or you create some mechanism to turn that on. It could be some natural disaster. Let's say we detected a 5.0 earthquake, and we really pinpointed where the largest shock was. So that would be one triggering type of event that you could do. So.
Maybe come up to the point better for the camera.
Oh, sure.
I'm sorry, Rob.
Okay.
Yeah, I should have asked you. I'm sorry. I apologize.
Got a question. So, Rob, at the last Criminal Justice Commission meeting, we spent a lot of time, based on concerns, talking about the security of the information that's in that camera, talking about, well, okay, it's great that it's being recorded, but can someone steal it? How can they, if someone wants to hack it, is it on the same, if there's Wi-Fi involved, then can you use that same Wi-Fi system to then hack into whatever videos are there and be used for some nefarious purpose? And I was happy with your response then, but I would like for you to give an overview of how that would be handled.
Yeah, it's a great question. So this device has multiple layers of hardened encryption inside it. So the technology that we use today is 24-bit encryption. That's the most advanced that we have today. So militaries use it, banking industries use it. 2048-bit is where our current technology is. So if you used all the computers, serialized together in the world working on cracking that, I think the last estimate I heard was about 10,000 years to break the code. So it's hardened encryption, and so we use that type of technology in this device. So all the media that is inside is encrypted in that manner. So there's no way that you can break into that code and dissect any information. So that's basically the fundamental technology behind it.
And we're talking here about a system that would allow Wi-Fi access and potentially cellular data being transmitted as well. So could someone get into the Wi-Fi and then access that camera? Even if it takes them 10,000 years, they're willing to do it. Is it possible for them to break into it through that Wi-Fi that's contained within that box?
No, it's operating on a different network. So even though there's a box up on the pole, there's multiple networks that are operating inside the box. So the Wi-Fi network is physically separated inside the box. So they don't commingle, they don't interact with each other. So totally separate networks.
And the amount of vendors that you may have down the line, it could be AT&T, Verizon, they all stick together as far as this packet as far as
Yes.
security and everything?
Yes, yes. And so those would all be potential consumers of the Wi-Fi side of the technology. So multiple vendors all using, just like we use today, in homes and businesses, Wi-Fi routers and networks. Those are all pretty standardized that any company can use.
So we see on throughout town there will be a Wi-Fi hotspot, for lack of a better word, but a transmitter, big pole, lots of transmission that takes place. How is this related to that sort of transmission?
Yeah, so this is a low power Wi-Fi network. So this has about the same power as the phone that's in your pocket today. What makes it special is when we're deployed on every pole, it creates a mesh network where they interact with each other. So this doesn't have to transmit very far. It just has to transmit to the next pole. So it works almost the same way as the internet does today, is you create this new meshed wireless network all throughout the city. So very low power, and that's how it works.
Can you pinpoint more cell phone activity in that general area?
You can, just like the Wi-Fi routers that you use today. You know how many concurrent connections are active on one particular device. And so this network, as it gets busy, it spreads out who's connected to which pole. It's all automatic. So that's all part of the Wi-Fi. And that's standard. That's not something special that Anycom has done to deploy that.
So if you have a major carrier like a Verizon, for example, that leases, I'm assuming it would be a lease of this system, does that help at all to eliminate or reduce areas where there would be low Wi-Fi, I mean not Wi-Fi, but cellular reception or no reception throughout the city?
Yeah, that's a good point. So today, just about 50% of all the calls that we make are handled by Wi-Fi. So at some point, as we pick up our phones and we make our calls today, it is handed down to the Wi-Fi network at some point. So with an improved Wi-Fi network that is everywhere, it makes that system work better. So the answer is yes. This will improve Wi-Fi calling no matter where it's deployed.
And currently, what cities are you in right now?
We have been piloting in the city of San Francisco. We've been piloting in Los Angeles. We've been piloting with the utility companies, LADWP. We've been piloting in Cleveland, in Yuma, Arizona. I think that's a broad brush of the major ones.
What have been some of the drawbacks? Have you noticed any drawbacks whatsoever?
None. Everyone is moving full steam ahead. We signed a full city deployment contract with the city of Yuma, Arizona.
I read that. Yeah, I read that article. It was a good article. Quite interesting.
So, yeah, we expect that to deploy across the entire city in Q1 of this next year. So that's 10,000 of these deployed.
Are you doing the back-end network operations on that particular project?
Yeah, so we run the entire network, and so this is an agnostic box, and so we make this available for anyone that wants to partner using the connectivity. So we're not specific to any carrier or any ISP. So
you create jobs from that?
Absolutely.
How many jobs in Yuma?
We expect by the end of 2020 to add about 350.
So there are a lot of cameras out there. You were mentioning the ones that were at intersections that are watching traffic. Businesses routinely have cameras. There are cameras in here that are actually watching all of us in the public space. I personally have a Ring doorbell camera and another camera on the outside of my house pointing out. The difference I see with this, and maybe you can talk about that a little bit, is that if it's on the street pole in front of my house, it's looking at my house, right? So what prevents video being accessed of inside of my home through one of my windows, for example?
Yeah, that's another good question. So let's just talk about the number of cameras to be specific. So every one of us has 2 cameras on us. We all have a cell phone. They have a rear-facing camera and a front-facing camera. So we have hundreds of thousands of cameras already deployed in this city. This device, the video doesn't go anywhere. It doesn't have that capability to stream all the video out of this device to another place. If that were even possible, we would be talking about massive wireless networks and data networks. That's not this device. So you can't access multiple simultaneous streams at the same time. What this device has the capability of doing is storing information inside. And so remember, there's no rear-facing camera in this device, so you can't see back to the home, but pretty much it can only see the available light that's on the street. And so if you take a look at any image, the image is corrected for the light that it sees. So it sees what's on the street. It doesn't look through doors or windows or walls or anything like that. This is basically a device that's 30 feet in the sky. That is basically looking down the street.
I've got a question, and maybe this is for the city council attorney, but let's say, for instance, I'm going to the bank, an AV bank. I walk in, I come out, and my door has a dent in it that was not there previously. Will I have the capability as a citizen to call and ask, can this camera identify who did that to my car?
I'll answer part of that, and then I'll turn the rest of it over. So as far as we're concerned, we don't access any video data. So we don't collect any out of this device. It doesn't come to us. Our purpose is to deploy Wi-Fi hotspots. That's our business. That's it. The public safety tools that are inside this box are for the benefit of the city. So it's up to the city to create the policy around the sensors that are in this box on how it's going to work.
Okay.
As the policy before you is written, you would be able to request it as part of a criminal investigation. So you would report that crime of hit and run to the Sheriff's Department. Sheriff's Department would alert us that there was an alleged hit and run at the location, and then we would seek the appropriate video from the appropriate time frame, and we would be able to secure that from the camera and save and retain it, and then provide it pursuant to appropriate legal processes. So the long answer is through the appropriate processes, yes. The short answer is yes.
Fantastic. Thank you.
Sir, you said that this system create the job, but can you tell us more detail about the job, what kind of job you could create? And it's going to be city employee or your contract,
Yeah, so let's talk specifically about Yuma, Arizona. So a few things that we're doing in Yuma, since they were the first city to sign with us, is we brought a network operations center opportunity to the city that basically creates a computer networking system and data center there to monitor the health of these devices, to make sure that the network is operating correctly and it's robust, and if there are any failures, to notify people to effect repairs on it. Because if the device is not operating, it's lost potential revenue as a Wi-Fi hotspot. So it has to be up, it has to be available and operating. So the data center that we have underway there now is basically to handle part of the southwest United States. About 12 million nodes there is the capacity that we're planning to build. And so it's just like any other data center. So large number of jobs across all different kinds of sectors to fill those positions. And so as we increase our opportunities on the West Coast, we'll need more of those. And we need them fairly close by to these devices. And so that's what we're building there. Yep.
From a city perspective, we anticipate obviously operating this system. There'll be need for additional jobs there as well, but also the installation of these and the maintenance of them. The maintenance of them is literally replacing them, and the maintenance goes back to his maintenance shop. But those are all handled by local union jobs as it relates to managing and installing these facilities. So from a local perspective, there's a benefit, and no commitments, but we've also been in communication with Rob about the opportunity for manufacturing as this becomes a larger opportunity, not only from a standpoint of beyond the 19,000 boxes we're making and the 12,000 in Yuma and other places, that if this is successful and is successfully piloted here, that we're in initial communications about manufacturing opportunities locally.
So should the city move forward, is there going to be a phase, or are you looking to install all the cameras as soon as possible?
Our goal is to create a citywide deployment of Wi-Fi hotspots. So the only way that the economics works is to do exactly that, to hit the whole city and hit it as fast as you possibly can. So typically it's about 3,000 to 5,000 units per month is the capacity of the local installers to get those in. So if you're looking at 18,000 units here, roughly about 6 to 8 months is the deployment cycle.
And that date is captured for 30 days?
28 days,
28 days.
Inside the box.
Inside the box, and then from there it goes to an outsourced server.
It doesn't go anywhere.
It doesn't go anywhere. It disappears.
That's right. It just gets erased over and over and over.
Like
again.
Commissioner Harris said, if there's an act of crime that he wants to investigate, he's had that 28 days to have all that brought forward.
Right. So we could create policies where you could create archive servers here in the city to create data for, let's say you have some hotspot, like in a central downtown that needs, there's more people, is more connected, and you're consuming much more data. So that's possible to do that.
Is it difficult to make that happen if there's a significant amount of crime in an area that they need more time to investigate a footage? Is the 28 days set in concrete?
It's not. So, yeah, that's a capability of the storage that's built into the box today. So it's adjustable.
Okay.
Great.
Well, thank you guys very much. We're obviously here for the long haul to answer any questions you may have or that come up from the public. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Jason.
Thank you, Jason.
Should we open up to the floor for speaker cards? Tonight we have a large number of speaker cards, much larger than normally, so from the people to address the commission on the agendized item. Therefore, we're going to limit everybody to 2 minutes. If try to keep it as brief and to the point as possible. Your input is very important, so we want to hear you. So with that, Fran.
You good?
Yeah, thank you. Good evening. Chairman Little, Commissioners, Vice Mayor, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Fran Sarasaris. I just put down a couple of notes from just right now. I have another. Okay, what my questions are going to be: after the 28 days, what happens to that data that you've collected? Where does it go? Who gets it? Or is it destroyed? Or what happens to it? So then my next question is, if it's going to take 8 months to implement this in all our light posts, when is this going to start here in the neighborhood? And after that, it's going to be 28 days. It seems to me 8 months for 28 days financially doesn't make sense to me, because it's going to take 8 months. You're going to be paying all this money, and then are only going to be able to use this apparatus for 28 days. That's my other question. Then if these poles are transmitting messages from one pole to the other, where does the transmission end? And is there a physical place where this energy or this messages are going to be held? And after 28 days, what happens to all this? Did we start all over again? And then I do have a positive to all this, though, as an advocate for disabled people. The one good thing I could see about this situation is, because we have, my 2 minutes are up already. Well, real quick, the disabled people have a lot of disadvantages when they're in public, especially if they're in wheelchairs. And this will be a good thing to be able to tell the people that are in wheelchairs that they are being safeguarded by the city. And I think that is good. Thank you.
Thank you, Fran.
Looking at me for direction. I think there's going to be two things tonight. One is going to be questions, one is going to be comments. I think we'll write down any questions they have and try to answer them later, if that's okay.
Perfect. Thank you, Jason. Chris Humphreys.
Good evening, everyone. I would just like to illustrate a few concerns based on the general concept of our government is that we have checks and balances. And so my main concern is which agencies and which government agencies are going to be monitoring the video, and how can we ensure that civil rights are not being violated as we install this kind of mass surveillance system. And also, there's a huge concern in regards to, let's say, some sort of public demonstration, civil disobedience, something that we have the right to participate in as American citizens. If we perceive a particular law as unjust or something of that nature, and would this technology then be used to track participants in those particular demonstrations, and what kind of slippery slope does that set up in the future for our community here in Lancaster? That's pretty much my main concern, so thank you.
Mr. Humphreys, thank you, sir. Peter Brunel.
First off, I would like to say that seeing this meeting in the newspaper yesterday, you should have forwarded it and given us a little more time to respond, number one. I will have 5 cameras staring at my house. Now, I don't care if it just records it and dumps it. We have the right to privacy. That violates, in my opinion, that right. The other thing that I'm curious about is the easement on my property says street light. Doesn't say surveillance camera. It says street light. Have you addressed that issue? Whether you have the legal right to put that on that street light or not? And my attitude is, if you're going to put a camera on the street light in front of my house, I just assume you take the damn thing out. That's really about all I have to say.
Thank you, sir. Christian Green?
Good evening, everyone. So my name is Christian Green. I'm a youth pastor as well as an educator out here in the Antelope Valley. I think 2 points need to be made clear. Is one, is that this decision should not be rushed, right? Secondly, is that we should come and have another second town hall in January after all this is analyzed and brought about. While I understand some of the valid uses, such as the control of lights, data on power usage, emergency responses, disaster responses, my biggest concern is privacy for the people, right? So further and further technology seems to encroach our privacy. I have no problem if people know what me and my nieces or nephews are doing on the Saturday. I have a problem with how that information might be used, where the information is stored, and how well that information is protected from bad actors. So I have a few questions. I have a minute left. Does the city already have a contract with Anycom today? What is the process to approve the nodes where they are installed? Location, where will these be placed? Public spaces on both east and west side. 19,000, I've heard our city manager talking about it earlier. We have 19,000 that we are making. Is this already in the process? And then also with these triggers that were mentioned before, will the police be notified and will there be no need for 911 calls? This is a potential violation of our privacy rights. Under the California U.S. Constitution, this tool can be easily be used in the disinterest of those in our community that are struggling. Facial recognition cameras versus smart street lights. We have to be cognitive of the language that we are using. This is about surveillance at the end of the day. Surveillance is a delicate subject in American history. This tool can develop further over-policing in our neighborhoods. Thus, we must ensure that this technology is not an evolved form of stop and frisk laws. It was mentioned about triggers, so we have to continue to look into that. Lastly, it was quoted in AV Press, November 2019, that this is about money. I want us to realize that this is more than profits, but this should be about people. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Lynn Exton? Erickson. Sorry, I didn't see it there.
Yes. Also, wouldn't this also put some people out of a job for all the companies that people have Wi-Fi, order Wi-Fi for the housings, and there would be no need for, if people had free Wi-Fi, there would be no need for companies to sell Wi-Fi internet boxes for people's in their houses. Plus, also, it is also against the law. And right now, I understand there is a federal law. The federal government is taking people to court regarding this matter of invasion of privacy. I know LA already has them down there, and they're fighting them also. This is a complete invasion of our privacy because anyone could be watched at any time, and who's to say some person in the council doesn't like another person, and so they have the cameras running and recording what a person is doing. Now, they may not be doing anything illegal, but what if they're doing something that they might say, well, this person, I think they're a bad person, and they're going to watch them all the time and see what they're doing in their house, in their yard. It's just complete invasion of privacy. Who's to say it doesn't happen?
Thank you. Ron Racing, is it? Kagan. Boy, I'm getting them all wrong tonight, aren't I? Hey, Ron. How are you?
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Ron Kagan, and I'm the Outreach Director for the Antelope Valley chapter of the American Civil Liberties Union. In October 1919, the ACLU sued the Justice Department, the Drug Enforcement Administration, and the FBI for their use of facial recognition software, arguing that the surveillance technology threatens our civil and privacy rights. The ACLU asserts in our lawsuit that facial recognition erodes Americans' protection against government surveillance and unlawful searches and seizures. People without their knowledge or consent are being photographed. Also, inaccuracies in the system could undermine unfairly target people of color and lead to false arrest. Currently, San Francisco and 5 other municipalities in California and Massachusetts have banned these technologies. So the comment about them being used in San Francisco, I'm sure they're not anymore. California Governor Newsom banned police from using facial recognition cameras in their body cams. FYI, the ACLU is also including gait recognition as well as voice recognition in their lawsuit. Numerous research shows that facial recognition software accuracy has a rate of 81 to 91%, which is very bad. And typically, it identifies people of color and women. 2 minutes sucks, I got to tell you that, okay? We need more than 2 minutes. We need 3 minutes up here. It's unfair that we are going through this big process and the public gets 2 minutes. So I'm going to end with that and also say one thing to the city of Lancaster. I am a Jew, and I'm highly offended that I do not see a Star of David or a menorah in all of the decorations that we have here. I think that I feel marginalized, and I'm sure that folks celebrating Kwanzaa feel the same. Thank you for your time, and I wish I had another minute to complete my statement.
Thank you, Ron. M. Feller.
Alrighty then. What cameras are already deployed? How can we trust you with 18,000 more if this gentleman's telling us he's already got them deployed here in the city? I don't remember getting any notice about that. My property taxes pay for the street lights. Okay, I don't necessarily want to give up my freedom for faster internet, thank you very much. Fourth Amendment, a man's home is a castle and so is a woman's. I pay property taxes here. This plan violates all of the Fourth. The right for the people to be secure in their persons and houses. Another thing you guys are disingenuous about, you started this meeting with 18,000 cameras, and then we jumped to 80,000, which was originally posted in the AV press. So now we've got cameras already up, and you guys can't even talk about the amount you really want, okay? We've got, it can't be hacked? That is hilarious. I can't think of one institution, government or otherwise, that has not been hacked. So of course this can be hacked. 350 union jobs, big deal. It'll be the same thing as our jobs out there in our solar panels. As soon as they're in, those jobs are gone. How's it not going to look in my yard? I don't care if there's only one camera on it. When you have 80,000 cameras deployed, they are going into residential neighborhoods. Any camera that sees 150 feet any direction will see into our front yards. Okay? Also talking about tower of choice, cell phones bounce off towers right now. So poles will bring Wi-Fi. People will be able to tell exactly who's on Wi-Fi. This is horrifying.
Time's up.
Why is Lancaster so interested in looking into our homes?
Thank you. Your time's up. Thank you. Larry Smith. Preston Clark.
Good evening. I just had one question. I was just curious about, we're talking about the range of view of the cameras there. They're going to be facing towards the street. Will they be taking in the sidewalks? And basically, what is the range? That's basically what my question is. Thank you.
Okay. Mike Delaney.
First, good evening and thank you for your time. We've heard numerous people already do a much better job than me at explaining the civil liberties concerns. So as an engineer with cybersecurity responsibility, I'd like to bring up the cybersecurity issues. 18,000 devices, no physical security. This is going to be a lot of fun for somebody. And in addition to the privacy issues from our own government, in the Antelope Valley, we have a large number of aerospace. This represents a major windfall for a hostile foreign actor. It would be trivial for China, Russia, some of the others, to use this to put our community at risk, put our aerospace community at risk. This is an absolute nightmare in every conceivable sense of the word. And there is no such thing as an unhackable system, sir. Give me a few days with it. You'll be surprised what I can find out. And I'm open to the challenge. Thank you for your time.
Ruth Sanchez.
Good evening. My name is Ruth, and I'm with the ACLU Antelope Valley chapter. I have a few questions. They've been different numbers, but I guess now I know that it's actually 19,000 cameras, not 18,000 or the 80,000. So I would like to clarification on that. I would also like to know where the money's coming from to purchase these cameras, and how much is it going to cost to install them, as well as to maintain them, and where's the money going to come from. I would also like to know, if you guys want these cameras now, what was the purpose of the drone? Pay millions of dollars for that drone to fly around, and it stores the information for 6 months, I was told. So what is the purpose of that drone if now you want cameras? Not to mention that, what is the purpose? You guys indicating that it's not going to record any noise when there's an accident, but you guys can activate it. So who's making those decisions, what needs to be activated, when it's going to be activated? I would like to know that. Another thing that I would like to know is, if we have all of this money to spend in gadgets, and I know it's Christmas and we all like gadgets during Christmas, why is it that this money is not being put to a better use in this community? And I would like to please get an answer sometime, as I waited for answers on other things, please. Thank you.
Thank you. Aubrey McPherson.
Good evening. It's very nice to meet some of you. I just want to kind of briefly run through some of my questions, and I hope that you guys will be able to keep up with me as I kind of talk a little fast here. So you talked about Wi-Fi monitoring, or possibly that the system's going to create Wi-Fi systems. One of the things that I haven't heard addressed yet is basically how that Wi-Fi can be connected, and whether the user that's going to connect to that Wi-Fi, if that data that they're searching on your Wi-Fi network, if it's going to be searched, if it's going to be held within a system, or if that information, for whatever reason, as they've gone into your system, if it's going to be tracked by any type of cookie system. These are all things that consumers have a right to know, especially if they're going to be tapping into a universal Wi-Fi network, especially as a private user or a private person who goes out and purchases Wi-Fi services from another organization. I believe that you're creating a monopoly system, and I believe that that, to a certain degree, might be illegal. In addition to that, other concerns that I also wanted to bring up to your addressment would be an example. You say that the system can track a bullet or can track a gun sound of some sorts, but how can it do that if it doesn't actually record any sound? The next thing that I do want to ask as well is that as a citizen that is potentially exposed to this, because I do have a light right in front of my house, sitting right in front of my property, even though it might not record because the light is in the front of my property, I know that my neighbor's house is not more than 150 feet away from me, so I know that you're going to have access to his yard, his dogs, and his information, who also, for your note, is actually sick as of this time. So please, by all means, if you are monitoring, please feel free to stop by. The last thing that I do also want to address is that I am not a lab rat. As your citizen, I do not want to participate in any type of system that essentially is going to allow me to be tested on. This is a system in which you guys are testing upon us, the citizens, and I'm asking you as a citizen of the city of Lancaster that you don't use this system as an opportunity to test out a new product for your user experience.
Thank you, Mr. Larry Smith. Mitch Klein.
Good evening, Commissioners. My name is Mitch Klein, Business Representative for the International Brotherhood of Electrical Workers. And I'm very impressed. These people brought up some really valid points. Myself, I'm for public safety, and anything regarding public safety I'm for, but I'm really in favor of the jobs that it creates. And basically, we bring these kids, the at-risk kids, off the streets. We give them jobs. We put them to school, and we give them careers. And not just the kids, but veterans, people of the community, people that need jobs. One person talked about the solar jobs. They're here today, and they're gone. Well, meanwhile, these people, we gave them careers, and we jump-started them where they can buy a car, they can buy a house, they can put food on the table for their kids, and we gave them good careers. And that's, to me, what this is about. So I'm in favor of this. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Klein. Again, Larry Smith. Lynn Erickson, you had two cards in. But her,
No, I already said.
yeah, I know. Thank you. Thank you, though. Mr. David Paul.
Chair Little and Commissioners, good evening. Thanks for coming out. This is an important thing. You know, I heard that the city is trying to help develop, and I am always proud of the city for its forward-looking bearing on future technology. Nothing is more permanent than change. We can't stop any of this. We can only control it to the best of our ability. So in that respect, I'm glad that we have, this is just an excellent city staff who plans for contingencies and understands the issues, and if anybody can help sort this out, it's them. But we shouldn't be under any illusions. This is bulk data collection. And the fact that Mr. Kagan talked about how San Francisco has diseliminated it, and the gentleman told us that it's in San Francisco. There's a little bit of conflict there that doesn't sit well with me. It's in L.A., and I would like the San Francisco police chief or the L.A. police chief to say, this is the bomb, this works, we've had results. I heard a couple of things. This is one my main concerns, the certainty of apprehension. I hear that. There's a camera on the street, and I'm going to expect the city and the sheriff to catch every criminal that violates on my street. And we asked the district attorney at the last meeting, how would this do with your caseload? And they're overwhelmed already, so I don't know how much we can actually do. And the last thing is the Yuma, Arizona thing. You know, I don't know. Like I said, I don't worry about this because it's been going on for 20 years. So it's not like new, oh, they're going to collect some data. But to say that you're in Yuma, Arizona, right next to the Army Proving Grounds, and to think that military intelligence doesn't have some notion of what's going on and all this is being sucked up, that's really what's happening. It's just happening. And if we're going to give up our privacy, we should get something back for it. If safer streets are what we get back, I'm all for that.
David, thank you. I believe I haven't missed anyone if somebody's put a card in. Discussion.
Mr. Chairman, can you ask again if anyone would like to speak?
Would anyone else like to speak? Would you like to speak?
Yes.
Okay. Come on up. You get another 2 minutes.
Fourth Amendment. Searches and seizures inside a home without a warrant are presumptively unreasonable. A person under the Fourth Amendment, when an officer observes unusual conduct, that is the only time that he is allowed to stop a suspicious person. Cars, where there is probable cause to believe that a vehicle contains evidence of a criminal activity. The state may not use a highway checkpoint program whose primary purpose is the discovery and interdiction of illegal narcotics. Seems to me the videotape is going against all of those. Now, we've also got our public city attorney, Allison, who stated in the newspaper these will not be part of the Freedom of Information Act. So who owns them? Does the city own them? Does that not make them government property that does fall under the Freedom of Information Act?
Are you directing that to us, the commission?
Actually, she was the attorney, so I'll direct it to you. Yep. Who's owning it?
We're taking notation.
Okay, if we're owning it, and when I say we, you guys represent me, why doesn't it fall under the Freedom of Information Act? Let me see what else I got here. Okay, again, we just looked up the Yuma, Arizona one, and it only can look at gunshots if the recorder is turned on. So that is another disingenuous remark, to sit here and say that the recording will not happen and then say it can identify a gunshot. The recording's either on or off. So we're not getting the right information here. I expect it from all of you.
Thank you.
Mr. Little, I was suggesting that only new speakers have the opportunity to speak.
Thank you. Thank you.
So I think that there are many concerns. The biggest concern to me is, even if at this point these cameras can be used for one purpose, once they are installed, the city or the manufacturer or anybody else can decide to repurpose them for an additional expanded purpose. And the other thing is additional supplies and other information can be added to the cameras and the little boxes, right? So even though right now it's 28 days that the information's stored, later on that storage can be expanded. That storage can be used for other purposes other than, maybe the video surveillance or whatever else, but it can change.
Thank you. New speaker. State your name, please, too. For the
Good
record.
evening, everyone. My name is Doretta Thompson, and I just had some questions, clarifying questions. It was mentioned that the sensors and the camera can actually detect when there's an earthquake or something like that. My concern with that is, how would that either work with or work against the current system, emergency alert system? And will it actually create some type of premature responses because we've actually heard something that may not have necessarily been an earthquake? So that was number one. The second thing I wanted to know, you mentioned that the cameras actually communicate with each other, and they actually will highlight a certain location where there's like maybe the incident is taking place like that. So what that sounds like to me is if something's happening on, let's say, 30th West, and somebody's running from 30th West, each camera is then going to communicate, highlight that person, and then follow that person. And if that person goes into a specific environment, would that light then highlight that the person is there? So those are just kind of some of my concerns. And who else would be at risk if we are prematurely dealing with the emergency responses that the systems are supposed to provide us? How are we going to deal with those components there? Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Jordan Williams. I have one simple question. That is, we were told that when a crime is committed, or we think a crime is committed, then the video will be looked at by law enforcement. If law enforcement is looking through that video and sees a totally, completely different crime being committed, will law enforcement be able to pursue that other crime that no one even knew about or brought up? Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Okay.
Hi, my name is Jeff Wergler. I did a little research online today regarding Anycom, and I wasn't able to find much information online at all about the company. The understanding I got from the reading I did was that this is a 25-year commitment from your company to the city of Lancaster. How does Anycom keep the technology current in all 18,000 of those boxes so that it is relevant as technology changes so quickly that 5G is going to be 10G pretty soon? And how does the company keep up with that technology, and what happens after 25 years with these boxes? That's all.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Christina, and I'm with the ACLU as well. The question that I have is, when I was reading online about the Yuma, Arizona, it stated that the prices are actually higher than what the first bids were because of the Chinese tariffs. And I'm just wondering if that will be looked into as far as what our possible increases are when it comes to certain socioeconomic problems between us and other countries where most of the components are made. Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioners, discussion. A lot of stuff.
I think you've been tracking, I'm sorry.
Yep.
opportunity comes from is, let's say today it's Wi-Fi 6, tomorrow it's Wi-Fi 7, so on and so on and so on. Our proposal is to keep these devices continuously updated, so as technology advances, this is an evolving system to make the connectivity stronger and stronger for all potential users of this service. So it could be any broadband company, it could be any cellular telephone company. So this is an agnostic device, similar to how devices are deployed in your city today. It's just another Wi-Fi hotspot.
Right. And the last one was Chinese tariffs, if you want to address those.
It's very painful for us. Today, about 55% of the technology in this device is manufactured in Asia that is subject to tariff, not only in the U.S. when it arrives, but we are also paying a tariff when it leaves over there. So we're paying it twice. We're also paying for the components that are manufactured over there. So all kinds of electronic components have increased in cost that are produced over there, and so that cost is also passed on. So right now, today, it's about 53% of increase in cost that we're having to absorb. And so we're trying to work on alternatives to that. One of those alternatives is to bring manufacturing back to the U.S. where we can. So that's what we're talking to the city about.
The question was not about tariffs. The question was about the national security threat posed by the Chinese origin.
Yeah.
Because there are certain computers the United States government will not buy that are made in China.
Yeah, so let me just address how this device is manufactured, because I think it's helpful. So low technology components are what is made over in Asia. So plastic. So this plastic is manufactured over there because the U.S. has transferred most of our plastic manufacturing high volume capability over there. So we have no choice. We also manufacture low technology power supplies. It's things that have been done traditionally over there for a long, long time. We have a manufacturing plant in South San Jose, in California here. That's where we put all the high technology components together that are inside here. So it never leaves our company. All the CPUs, all the software, everything that's loaded on this device to make it secure is made under our eye. So it's not outsourced.
But isn't that a computer cost for the city, updating it on Wi-Fi?
Yeah, it's a good point. So our company is paying for it. So there is no cost to the city of Lancaster. So it's our company that is taking the risk in your city if we choose to come here. So that's what we're talking about. So we're talking about making an investment primarily to bring higher speed internet to your city. So that's our interest.
Rob,
if you have any more questions.
Is there anything else? I got a quick question. There was some dialogue that was brought up about San Francisco and some instances there. So could you elaborate on that, please?
Sure. We've had a contract with the city of San Francisco for a year and a half to pilot the capabilities of this technology with the SFPUC, the Public Utilities Commission, to see if this device could be helpful for the same kind of issues that this city has. knowing whether or not the streetlights are working, whether or not there is a failure. So they are trying to figure out the same kind of policy that you're doing here before making a full city implementation. So we've been piloting with the city of San Francisco for about a year and a half.
I would add, too, from the facial recognition perspective, if the state were to ban it or Governor Newsom said you can't do it, we would obviously comply with any laws of the land that require us to do certain things. So,
yeah, and let me just cover one point on here. There is no facial recognition capability inside this box. It's just a snapshot. So there's nothing inside here that is analyzing the components of a structure of a face.
Ron, no more. Okay. So, any other questions or Tim?
No, I'm looking.
Tim's got a book here.
No, well, you covered a lot of them. The facial recognition, I thought was important to talk about that. On the Wi-Fi, just a clarification, is that one of the points that was made or concern was that, okay, so if we have this Wi-Fi system throughout the city of Lancaster, what does that do to all the carriers? This becomes a monopoly. What happens to the Verizons, et cetera? And I just want to make sure that I'm understanding that we're not talking about that. What we're talking about is providing them with a vehicle for those same companies to provide their services as they are today. Is that correct?
That's correct.
So if I have Verizon and I want to continue with that, and I'm living in the city of Lancaster, and Verizon rents this space, then I should expect improved performance, but I still continue to pay Verizon, not the city, not you. Is that correct?
That's exactly right.
Okay, and so other competitors could lease that space as well in the same way they would a cell tower today?
Yes.
Is that correct?
And that's the way cellular works today.
Okay. One of the questions that was raised was about location of the gunshot. It was stated earlier that the recording of sounds would not be enabled, but it could be detected, which then would allow to say, okay, there was what sounded like a gunshot in this area, but it's not recording that actual gunshot. One of our speakers emphatically stated that that cannot happen without recording based on the research that they gave. Is that correct?
That's a great question. So if you'll give me 10 seconds, I'll show you a little device that will help you understand that exact question. So let me just grab my bag here.
This should be cool. It's going to be exciting, I think. It feels like it.
Hold on. If I can find it. Aha. You already have thousands of these devices in your city. Behind this little dot here is a microphone. This is a glass break sensor for an alarm system. So what it does is it detects the frequency of breaking glass inside this device, and it creates a trigger for an alarm system to ring the bell and notify the security company, hey, I think the window's broken. These are in just about every single commercial building. Homes have these. These are all part of the alarm system. So there's no recording going on here. It's just listening for a frequency. Same thing in this device. The reason why I know that is I was one of the co-inventors of this 30 years ago. So this is similar technology. So it can be programmed. Let's listen for the frequency of a gunshot. Okay, this particular device heard that gunshot. This one over here at this intersection heard it the loudest. There's no recording going on. All it's doing is just looking at that pulse, that frequency pulse. And so we believe that's a valuable tool for cities. It's up to cities to create policy of whether or not that's a good tool or not. For us, we're about the Wi-Fi.
Well,
So,
we
but,
might-
but
we
so
might turn it up.
what you're telling us is that it's false to state that recording has to be turned on in order for that technology to work. Is that correct?
It's false.
Okay, a couple of other related questions, or not related to that, I'm sorry, but two that are related that I got from the audience here is, what if a city council person doesn't like me? And I live in the city of Lancaster, and they want to follow me around. And so they put in, can they order then that these cameras be activated to track Tim Fuller and where he's going because I'm a bad guy, according to this city council person?
Right. The policy does. Go ahead.
The policy would not allow that. It would not allow any council member to do that, and in order for that to happen, the policy would have to come back to before the council at a public meeting and be modified to allow that to happen, which I have a feeling I can anticipate the response.
Well, at this point in time, if I'm not mistaken,
And I don't think
it's
the
not even
technology can
possible
do it. Yeah, I don't think the technology can do it.
It's stored on each individual, so they'd have to, if they wanted to see me in theory, they would have to request that, get the videos, find out where I went, and do a tracking, which would be a pretty public process. Is that correct?
That would be a public process because all of those would then be public records,
Okay,
yes.
and so then the other one is, okay, fine. So that's today, and we've got this policy, and that's the way it is now. But now after we have these cameras up, I think there's some concern about, okay, then what happens? Can you just change that policy, and then all of a sudden we have facial recognition, we have this, we have the other? What process has to be followed legally in order for then the city council to say, well, it was only going to be this, but really we want something else and it needs to be changed?
For a council-adopted policy, it can be amended only by the council.
Okay.
So it would have to be done at a public meeting.
Okay. So the public would be once again informed as they were in this case.
Of this event, yes.
So that it would not be done behind closed doors, so to speak.
Correct. It would not be secret, silent, or away from the public scrutiny and the ability to comment, as
Okay.
was done tonight.
And just a clarification, then, Rob, too, is the statement was made that San Francisco has eliminated this program because of concerns of facial recognition. Is that correct?
No, it's an active program today. The policy that was being referred to is no facial recognition within the city. So they already have the same kind of cameras at intersections and at bus stops that your city does. So it's just not deploying anything that can personally identify somebody.
So they're making sure through their policies that that does not happen.
Correct.
Not that it is happening with your technology,
No.
and now it's being eliminated because they don't like that technology.
No, it is not.
Okay, that's not the case, is what you're telling me.
Correct.
If you have the motion sensors on the poles and you sense vibrations, and that's the potential of saying there is an earthquake, it could be an early warning. Is that technology fully developed today and can be implemented today?
No.
So this is just something that could happen?
Yes.
So then I'm assuming you really couldn't address how something that doesn't exist right now, but it's only in theory, could interact with the emergency response system. Is that correct?
Yeah, we're far from that today.
Okay.
So
But it gives the potential, since it does detect changes, motion? Vibrations.
Commissioner
Okay.
Fuller, if I may expand on my prior answer,
Yeah.
I should have mentioned that violation of the policy would subject for example, council member who is acting nefariously to civil and criminal penalties as well. I
That's
should
good.
have mentioned that
Well,
in my
that's
response.
good because the example was following me, so I would hope.
There you go.
Okay. All right. So, and probable cause is what we're talking about. So, legal probable cause that a crime had been committed is what the bar is on this for accessing the video. Is that correct?
We have written the policy to assist in criminal investigations. That is the way it's phrased right now. We have not stated legal probable cause. That said, That is essentially the standard, but we have not stated probable cause as the express standard to which we're being held. It assists in a criminal investigation.
Okay. So it would be, is it unlike the type of investigation the sheriff would do today? The concern is there's civil liberties concerns that have come up repeatedly tonight, and how it's going to be used, and who can access it, and what triggers that. So that, I think, is something that should be addressed. The Fourth Amendment claims you talked about in terms of privacy, I believe. But I think that the other one was, what about in civil disobedience, for example? So we get a crowd of people who are protesting legally, hopefully. I mean, if they're protesting illegally, I think that would be a crime. But would that then, or could it be access to say, look, we got this group of people who are of a different political affiliation, let's target them in some way?
No, that would be a violation of the policy unless there was a crime involved. If a crime took place in that, within the physical location of that particular demonstration, let's say, it became violent and there was an assault or something of that nature, that took place within that protest, then that video would be available to be pulled. But otherwise, under the policy, it would not be accessible just to monitor who was attending a protest or something of that
someone
nature.
has a legal protest and they're going to be walking down Lancaster Boulevard and they have a permit or whatever it is, because I don't know what the process is, but they're doing it legally, they're acting legally, and it's peaceful. Then it would be a civil and or criminal penalty to try to access that data to find out who was there. Is that correct?
That is correct.
However, if someone then gets beaten while that's taking place, that could be the trigger for accessing that video. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Okay.
May I ask a follow-up to that?
Mr. Chairman.
Let's hold on.
Not right now. No.
Okay.
Let's finish what we got here.
Those are all the ones I wrote down. I apologize if I missed the ones. I think they've been well covered, from my perspective.
I had a question regarding the contract. It's a 25-year contract. I know how contracts can be very complicated, so I don't want you to go into direct detail, but it would be interesting to know what are the capabilities of the city of Lancaster getting out of that contract if it proved to be problematic more than it proved to be a good thing.
Right. Well, there's a couple sides of that story. Is Rob and his company don't care if we look at the cameras or not. So, and we care that he provides better cellular services and shares the revenue associated with our streetlights. So it's a natural connection. If this policy or the council decided, or a future council or whatever it is, said we're done with the camera program, the cellular, wireless, and all the other technology benefits that benefit us can still exist separately.
Okay.
Right? Does that make sense? Because I think with regard to the performance of that system, I mean, we have protections in the agreement, and we're working on that. I don't want to say that we're not protected for 25 years, but it's through a mutual beneficial relationship. Is as long as that Wi-Fi is operating, cellular's operating, and they're performing, and we're performing, good news. If somehow this commission or the council says we don't want to do this camera thing anymore, we take the cameras off, and it has no impact whatsoever on his revenue.
But just to clarify, if I understand correctly, today there is no contract. It's
Correct.
in negotiation.
We're negotiating that contract now. Getting close, but it's still under negotiation.
The cameras we have in place now within the city are with?
Oh, pardon me?
We have cameras?
Yes.
Yeah. And that's with a different company?
We have DVRs and recorders on site that can communicate.
Boulevard? Same
Boulevard's one of them. All of our parks, city hall facilities, those are all internal, typical that probably businesses have very similar systems in which you monitor and record.
But they're not it's not through an arrangement with Anycom.
Correct.
To answer your question.
Right, yeah.
Directly.
Thank you.
Okay.
So the issue, it seems to me, is one of privacy and whether there's a benefit to giving up some element of privacy and whether that benefit outweighs the loss of privacy. I'm very much in favor of privacy. I'm impressed by the turnout of people here tonight that are worried about and vigilant about their privacy. I think that if we look at it from the point of view that if the Sheriff's Department, for example, in this situation, decided to allocate their resources and have a trained observer stand at each light post to keep an eye on the public street, and if a crime were to occur, they would be there to identify it and report it, and if an accident occurred, they'd be there to report the events in an accurate way. So what we're really talking about, and I don't think anyone would disagree that the Sheriff's Department would certainly be, or the city would certainly be within their rights to post people to be observers. So in some sense what we're saying is that those potential observers are going to be, instead of observers, we're going to have cameras which are going to be more accurate than observers. They're going to give us information that can be checked and verified. Clearly a system in place like this, it really has, privacy has to do with the expectation of privacy. It's a very nice woman that got up and discussed how she doesn't want the government, the city, looking into her house, and I don't want the government and city looking into my house. I think there should have to be some assurance that these cameras, although they potentially in certain locations could have the ability to look into a house, that precautions should be taken that that's not going to happen, and that the purview of these cameras will be on public property where there should not be an expectation of privacy. The whole issue of hacking, I think, is a little bit of a red herring in the sense that if the Chinese wanted to hire dozens of observers to come and stand on the streets of Lancaster and observe what's going on in those streets, that's essentially the same thing as if they were able to hack these cameras. They could get the same information by doing that. It would be cheaper for them if they hacked into it, but the information that they're going to get is really no different than if they came over with a good supply of citizens or Chinese citizens, if you'd like, to be observers for them on the streets of Lancaster. I'm sorry, somebody said.
If they were to do that, would that not be
No. Excuse me. Let's finish up. Go ahead, Doctor.
So, I think that I liked your distinction about whether the information from the camera is actually made accessible to the city or whether it's just dummy information that's never going to be looked at by anybody. But the reality is, if somebody wanted to look at what's going on in the streets of Lancaster, I can imagine a room, for example, with 80,000 screens, and the public is available to come and sit in that room and look at what's going on all the screens, and I don't think that the city has anything to hide from the people who might like to see what's going on the streets of Lancaster. There's nothing secret about this. This is public information. It's public. It's an area where there should be an expectation of, and not an expectation of privacy. I think the privacy issue in our society has gotten terrible, but I think 90% of the loss of privacy in our society these days is given up voluntarily. People on social media and the internet are giving away enormous amounts of their privacy, and they do so voluntarily. That's a real problem, it seems to me, from the point of view of privacy. But from this point of view, if you had a system where there was the opportunity to observe what's going on in the city, on the streets, public streets of Lancaster, you could clearly decrease crime, not only solve crime, but I think if people were aware that that system was in place, you would decrease crime. And that has potentially an enormous benefit to the community as a whole. And it would probably also help in the solving of accidents and other kinds of misfortunes that might take place, and it would give the people investigating those an opportunity to get some pretty clear information to help them decide what happened and what could be done about it.
I'd just like to say that I came here with an open mind tonight, and I've heard a lot of concerns that I consider to be relatively valid. But on the flip side of the coin, I also look at the security that the cameras could provide for the city of Lancaster. I mentioned the fact of you walk out and your car has been hit by a hit-and-run driver, and that capability is there. It's a situation where I don't think the privacy is going to be too intriguing as people think it will be. I like the concept of what it provides, and I like the fact that it creates an additional security system for us in the city of Lancaster.
I belong to a couple of online groups. A lot of us do. It's called a neighborhood app. I can't remember what it's called, but it's sharing of information among people in a particular geographic area. And I'd mentioned earlier I have a Ring doorbell, and there's a lot of sharing that goes on there, as well as, somebody saw this person, they think they're suspicious, et cetera. And actually, there was a crime that was committed right outside of my house that we were able to help in potentially identifying that individual, and they were caught then actually breaking into a neighbor's house about 30 minutes later through the person's backyard. But yesterday, for example, I'm looking at this neighborhood app, and there were a number of people who were reporting on and showing photos of those communal mailboxes, where you have a whole bunch of mailboxes in one location that had been pried open and all the packages stolen out of them, and it was in more than one neighborhood. And the question people are asking is, anybody have a camera on that? Does anybody know who's doing this? Because it seems to be repetitive, and I think that in my neighborhood anyway, we'd love to know who that is and to stop them from breaking in, stealing mail packages off of doorsteps, people going into other people's backyards. The crime is an issue, and if something can be done to eliminate it, I'm all for it, while at the same time being sensitive to the concerns about privacy that I think we have to take very seriously. But overall, I'm a business owner, and had a crime that was committed on my property. Actually, it's been repetitive in terms of damage of my inventory, with thousands and thousands of dollars worth of damage that would love to know who did it, number one, but I'd really just like them to stop. And if they think that there's cameras, or know that there are cameras that could help to track that theft, that destruction, that vandalism, would be helpful. So that's where I am. I think that it has a tremendous opportunity for helping with the public safety, but that there needs to be concerns about the privacy. There really does. So weighing those two.
I had the same incident regarding our neighborhood, the same thing. Mailboxes were being broken into, community mailboxes, and the same thing, the neighborhood watch people came around. It's too bad we don't have cameras in that area. And, I think obviously the city, one of the number one concerns is public safety, security and this and that, and they're always looking at innovative ways of doing stuff. So, and yes, the privacy issue is an issue. It's always going to be out there. And but I honestly believe that the city's looking at all angles, and Allison has to keep that in mind as far as every ordinance and procedure she adopts. So,
just a question for process, if I may. We're looking through this now. This is the second meeting that we've had, the Criminal Justice Commission, where we've been discussing this topic, and it appears that people would still like to discuss it further, and especially as it's affected a policy. We don't make policy. That's the City Council. So should we recommend that it at least go forward to the City Council for further consideration with perhaps a couple of recommendations as that is happening? Would there be yet another opportunity for individuals in this room or who have not had the opportunity to participate in that process with the actual decision makers themselves, the City Council?
Yes, that's absolutely true, and that they would have another a meeting to attend with the City Council to air their challenges, their concerns, their questions. At the same token, this is enlightening or informing the city council who's present as well, listening to the comments ahead of time, but also that are other citizens that might be taking a position or listening to the outcomes of this. So that's the purpose of this meeting. It's also recommended for your commission to recommend to the council and to maybe identify challenges that you may see now that need to be changed prior to going to the council. This process is informing city staff as it relates to what we're getting, the feedback we're getting, as it relates to modifications of that policy ahead of time. But it's all information gathering at this point, and hopefully a recommendation from your council, from your commission to the council.
So, Chairman Little, are you looking for a motion, or are we just going to be doing informal discussion and recommendations, given that the council is...
Well, we're looking for something that you can either add some policy or recommendations, or make some type of move for city council to look at this. And it's important that the general public gets to have another say-so in this. But with the things that we've covered here tonight, if any other commissioners would like to...
So tonight we're agendized for discussion and not for action.
Correct.
So this is a discussion, this is a town hall, this is to take in comments and thoughts. It is not an action agenda. So it would be appropriate to take this in and then make your recommendation at a future meeting.
Okay, at our next meeting of the Criminal Justice Commission?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Any other thing?
I do.
Commissioners, Vice Mayor.
You have some people in the audience that would still like to have a comment, and it was billed as a town hall meeting, so let's make it one. But let me caution you, let's just keep it civil, and we can talk. But Ron, do you want to talk about the geonetting a little bit?
Sure, I can do that. So, cameras for a long time have had the capability to mask areas that its sensor can see. So that's certainly possible with every single one of these, is you can create a mask of don't go there. That's the wrong spot. So certainly possible, doable. So that those are all options that we can weigh in on.
Okay, go ahead.
Thank you so much.
Will you stand up? Go to the podium.
Good evening. I'm Rochelle Dillick. We've spoke a lot about what capabilities the cameras have, and we spoke just a little bit about this drone. I want to know what the drone is going to do and what difference is it going to provide or invade versus the drone that we already have. And I believe we're still under contract with that drone that we have in the sky, the big eye in the sky. So if we're going to switch that, are we going to get stuck with the bill getting out of that contract? And what exactly are those drones going to do? Because I personally, I feel like all the attention is going on the cameras and this drone is coming in underneath. And okay, so what do we got with this drone?
Well, we don't. Our chairman had to step out for a second, but the city of Lancaster, I understand, actually does not have a drone. It's a piloted aircraft that's contracted to do surveillance in certain circumstances. It does take pictures.
It does take pictures.
I know. And tonight we were going to be looking specifically at the one issue. It's the only one that's agendized, is talking about the camera system. So I need guidance in terms of if you want to answer the question.
The drone, I'm sure that you're referring to, is not a drone. It's a piloted aircraft. Right. That would be obsolete if these cameras were installed. Mm-hmm. But there's not a new drone coming or a different drone. It's just...
There was a mention of it.
No.
And if the other is obsolete,
yes.
If the other is obsolete, what's the cost in getting out of that contract?
It's a 30-day out currently.
Pardon me?
No cost.
No cost. Okay, thank you.
Go ahead. You need to state your name again, please.
Yeah, absolutely. My name is Chris Humphreys, and as stated before, we were talking about with civil disobedience and or like demonstrations and things of that nature. And I understand that if it's considered lawful, a lawful event, that we wouldn't have that the cameras wouldn't be a source for information. But what kind of laws would have to be broken in order for us to start that monitoring of those events? Because in the form of civil disobedience, you could be purposefully breaking a law that is seen as against the Constitution or something of that nature. Like you could take, sit-ins back in the 50s and 60s, for example, to break segregation law. And at the same time, if you're going to be leaving it open for any law to be broken, I mean, I could have a group of 200 people at a park, and one person happens to leave their plastic water bottle on the ground. All of a sudden, that's littering. That's a law that's been broken, and now you can monitor the whole event through the justification of a broken law. So I think if we could define, I understand if there's a violent occurrence at one of these events, then absolutely you should be able to monitor to find out who's responsible for that violence. But are we going to have protections against some of these more minor laws that are going to be possibly violated in a large event like that? Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Humphreys, if I could ask, seems to me that civil disobedience, in and of itself, the goal is the opposite of privacy. In other words, to have a secret civil disobedience event completely misses the point. You want to be public.
But I'm talking about...
Mr.
Yeah, absolutely.
Excuse me. Wait till you get the microphone, Mr. Humphrey. Thank you.
Yeah, no problem.
Thank you.
But yeah, no, for sure. So basically, when you're having a civil disobedience action, you want that action to be public. But if I break a law and then I leave that event, I break a law in a form of civil disobedience, and I'm not arrested at that particular event, would you then be able to extract at a later date, like the next day, a week from then, extract that camera information to be able to follow where I went, to look at who I was meeting with, to try to expand the charges to anyone that I may have conspired with, or any sort of other attachments along with that. So that would be the main concern, because if you're enacting in a civil disobedience yourself, you're looking for publicity at that moment, but you're not necessarily inviting the government or the police to then follow you through the rest of your life. And that is a primary concern.
If I may, I mean, the policy of how data is accessed and how it's used seems to be critical. I mean, that is really where the discussion has been and will continue to be. I would also think that, however, if you had a group of 200 people who were at City Park, you're going to have law enforcement presence there just because of a group of 200 people, whether they're being peaceful or not, just because that's a large gathering of individuals that has potential for something going wrong.
Let's not make this a debate.
Yeah.
Okay. So
I understand, but this needs to be established as something. The fact is, yeah, you'll have police there, but by being able to observe through record with images, you're then able to follow any individual. So like, let's say, like I said with the littering example, one person is littering, a police officer who is there at the scene observes that act of littering and says, hey, there was a crime, let's go through and take a look at the whole event. Then you can look at that whole event, find any other individual who was littering or doing any other, breaking any other city ordinance, and then you would be able to follow that person. And so you could literally use this as justification. And all I'm asking is that we put something in the law that protects us from these attached crimes and protects us from having our voices silenced as a result of small misdemeanors or other associated ordinance violations to then limit people's ability to enact in certain events and things of that nature. Gotcha. Thank you very much.
Who has not spoken? Come on up.
Hello, my name is Anaya, and I have a question about these the cameras. I was wondering because Verizon and all the cellular companies are the ones who are paying everything. Obviously, nothing is free, so I want to know what they want to do with that data as far as the recording and stuff like that. Another question I have is how does law enforcement will have access to the data as far as like how quickly will it be able to get it as far as because you mentioned first responders being able to track it, and just want to know like how soon and how quickly would that really work.
That's been covered. I think, Jason, you can go ahead and do that as far as time. Yeah, you've already spoken on this part. Yep.
The speed at which a video is downloaded from the camera is going to be pretty fast. I mean, it's going to be, if there's a crime happen and public safety or the sheriff's department requests it, it'll be within the hour, I'm guessing. It's not a long time frame to download that kind of.
But a request will have to be made. Is that what you're referring to?
What was that?
A request would have to be made for that information. Is that what you're referring to?
Also, just because, like he mentioned, the cell providers are the ones who are paying for free because it's not coming out of the city's pocket. But however, what does the cell phone companies want to do with that data?
Yeah, to clarify, they don't get the video and they don't get the data. They get the delivery of wireless communications and telecommunications.
Yeah.
Okay.
They're just delivering your phone calls through.
Yeah, they're not getting that.
Okay.
Okay.
It's a separate system, too.
Mm-hmm.
You've had everybody talk.
Anyone else that has not spoke? You spoke?
Only a minute.
Only a minute? Anyone else? You've spoken. Okay.
I just have a follow-up. I just have an additional question on that.
And I have a suggestion.
Okay.
As do I.
Okay. We could go on and on and on this. I think we've got a lot. We got a lot of information. Vice Mayor,
go ahead and close the meeting, and I'll stay behind, and I will listen to your suggestions.
Okay.
I'm the Vice Mayor. I'll listen to your suggestions.
That's not fair.
And you've already had an opportunity to speak.
2
so
minutes,
do what you.
Not enough time for
Go
us
ahead.
to get our point across.
But you guys have
That's very
questions
unfair.
later too. It's like you guys should have only said one thing at the beginning of that.
Very
But
unfair.
as you heard more, you had more questions.
Okay.
It's a town hall. That's all I'm saying.
thank you.
There's people in the
Ron.
audience that have more to say.
Ron. Thank you. Okay. You guys will have another opportunity if and when this goes to council, and we'll go through all this again. This is a lot of information that for the commissioners here to take and to make great recommendations to staff.
May I ask why we only have 2 minutes to speak instead of 3, which is traditional?
Because of the amount of input that we have.
There's people that still want to speak, though.
So.
I'm not going to take more than 1 minute.
Thank you, Ron.
May I speak?
You're done. Thank you.
I'm done?
Yes, we're done. We're done. So, Um,
God, I love democracy.
yeah, Commissioners, anything? So we'll have a lot of information to get back with you.
This is coming back at the next criminal.
Yeah, this will be coming back.
They'll have another chance.
They'll have another chance. Yeah, you'll have another chance to come back at criminal justice. So.
And then from there to City Hall.
Then from there to City Hall.
Will
So,
it be advertised more than one day in advance?
I'm sure it will. I'm sure it will.
Sure.
Yeah.
Well, let's
make
ask
that.
that
Let's make that recommendation that we get it generally publicized.
Yeah, just to clarify, we notified the meeting 3 days in advance. We also posted on Facebook, Instagram, and many other resources that we do. Because the paper printed it when they did, we don't control when they print the paper,
Correct.
but we did as much notification as possible.
Okay.
So it was advertised 3 days in advance, is what you're
Yes.
saying? Okay.
More than that.
So we'll have 3 days prior to when this comes on the agenda again for the criminal justice. Okay. Any other comments, commissioners? No. Then we'll stand adjourned.
Thank you.